Welcome back to SM Sports Radio. We are back yet another week, still at this lovely setup we have going here, and a lot to talk about this week from both the Stanley Cup Final and NHL, NBA Finals over in the NBA. There's a lot of MLB stuff that's gone on in the past week, and even a little bit of NFL news. I know that hasn't happened in a while, but we'll get to it all in due time. But let's start off with just me asking you how your week was. How have you been?
My week was absolutely incredible. If you know me in my personal life, you know that my family has been gone in Colorado all week. And so that's left me and my dog at the house, and I can just watch baseball as much as I want to watch baseball. Spent a lot of time over at DKS this weekend watching a lot of good baseball. Was there for 6 games. And whenever Clemson baseball is winning, I'm happy. So Clemson baseball won 3 times this weekend, so I'm very happy.
Yeah, I did not spend a lot of time at DKS, but I did spend a lot of time on my couch watching the Florida Gators baseball team, who, against all odds, and a lot of people saying they shouldn't even have been in the tournament.
Including you.
Including me. I am people, including me. They made it out of the Stillwater Regional, and just the pitching from that team was so much better than I expected. This pitching all year has been why I've been saying this team maybe didn't even deserve a tournament spot with the resume, but I think that if that version of that team shows up and they're able to pitch, the sky's the limit for Florida, frankly.
We'll get back to that a little bit later.
Let's start off with the professional level of baseball. And you can't really talk about the MLB right now without talking about Aaron Judge, who has just gone nuclear all of May and got to San Francisco, hit 3 homers versus the Giants, 1 MLB Player of the Month or in AL Player of the Month. And this guy is just unstoppable right now.
Yeah, and Judge is one of those few players that right now, if you ask me, will he be a Hall of Famer? I'm going to have to say yes to Aaron Judge. And I know the baseball.
What about Luis Ariz, though? What about Luis Ariz?
I'm not even going to entertain that discourse that we've been reading on Twitter. But Aaron Judge, man, definitely an all-time great. We know that the Baseball Hall of Fame doesn't really just let anyone in. But I think Aaron Judge is kind of getting to that point where if he can not even sustain this level of dominance, if he can be 3/4 of what he is now for 3 to 4 more years, I think he's a lock for the Hall of Fame, wouldn't you say?
Well, I think what helps him out a lot is having that AL home run record. Breaking that, I think, is something that really is going to give him a boost getting into the Hall of Fame. And also, as good as he is defensively in the outfield, because a lot of times, I think if he was a first baseman and was just a pure hitting first baseman, you wouldn't be able to say that. But I think because of what he brings on both sides of the game of baseball, I think that you can really start to maybe move him towards that conversation.
Yeah, and the one detriment to him, his stats aren't going to necessarily get up there career-wise with the rest of the all-time greats, just because it took him to, his age 26 season.
Yeah, he was a late
up.
debut.
Really late debut, getting a little bit up there in terms of prime years of baseball, but hopefully he can keep it going. Unfortunately, it has to be for the Yankees. I'm not a big Yankees guy, but
yeah,
definitely a really cool player to watch.
The Yankees managed to make all these amazing players so boring every year. I don't get how
bland.
they're consistently able to do that, but they find a way, I guess.
In an era where we're trying to market all these players, their personalities and stuff, basically the Yankees just get into the batter's box, hit home runs, trot around, have clean-shaven faces, not many celebrations.
What happened to Miami Giancarlo Stanton? They used to be one of the most electrifying players in the league, and he hits a home run now, and occasionally you get a bat toss, and he walks around at 2 miles an hour at his max speed around the bases and gets back. But I don't know. I hope that maybe you can get some of the Juan Soto swagger throughout that clubhouse a bit more, but we'll have to see. But we mentioned maybe keeping things interesting. I'll tell you a guy who really wanted to make his life interesting. That was Tucupita Marcano, currently of the Padres, but no longer, formerly of the Pirates last season, who has been given a lifetime ban for betting on Pirates games while a member of the Pirates, and he wasn't even good at it. He had a 95% loss rate.
Yeah, I think I read that he won 4% of his bets, a total of 9 bets, and I think he bet around $100,000 total.
Yeah, so I would say don't quit your day job, but you got fired from your day job forever, so good luck with that.
Hey, you can be a full-time gambler now, though.
You can. DraftKings, hit him up on the ads, yeah. Like that one Duke baseball player said, goodbye, baseball, hello, DraftKings.
That was very funny.
I can't wait for the BetMGM ad with the giant flames and then Tucupita Marcano coming forward out of the flames. But just, it's such double standards, double meanings from the MLB as far as all the gambling stuff where, oh, the MLB brought to you by DraftKings. All these stuff brought to you by, yes, all these things brought to you by betting companies. And then as soon as players go out there and they're like, all these ads for these betting companies, I would like to bet. ESPN, no, done immediately. MLB, done immediately. You're gone. You're fired, which makes sense. These guys should be banned, I think, for betting on games that their own teams are playing in. But at the same time, I don't think if you're the MLB, you can continue to advertise these sports betting so hard if you're going to turn. It's such a double,
Yeah.
I don't think it's going to end
Major
well.
League Baseball getting in bed with these gambling sites and gambling companies was never going to end well in the first place. And honestly, I will take it to my grave. I don't care what the FBI says. I think Shohei Ohtani. I think that was a cover-up.
I think we're going to disagree on that forever. I think we're going to disagree on that forever. But no translator for Marcano. No. So
I think a few other players got some small bans, including Michael Kelly, 1 year ban for betting. I think $100.
It was
not too much money.
4 players, including a Phillies minor leaguer, got 1 year bans for betting on teams or betting on games that their teams were not participating in. So
don't bet on your own teams or your own leagues or anything like that if you're a future Major League Baseball player.
Use code 1 year ban to bet on any team other than your team. But that commercial coming next year. But moving on to happier things, let's talk about the Reds, a sentence that has not been said all year. As the Cincinnati Reds swept the Dodgers, then took 1 out of 3 from the Cardinals, and then took 2 of 3 from the Cubs to win another series, and then last night obliterated the Rockies 13-3. This Reds team is hot right now. The pitching is still doing well, and the bats have finally started to heat up. Jamer Candelario is really heated up. Jake Fraley's playing well. Ellie can't do anything other than strike out right now. But
back to Ellie doing the strikeout.
It seems like either the team is winning or Ellie is good. We can't have both at the same time. But as much as I love Ellie, I will take the team is winning because it's been super fun. And it's a great time for the Reds to get hot because they entered a stretch when they started their series against the Cardinals where 24 of their next 31 games are against teams in the NL Central. So for a team that sits currently, I think, 9 games down at the back of the NL Central, this is a really important time for them to get hot.
Yeah, and I'm not trying to rain on your parade or anything, but I read the headline, the Reds are so back. Look at the standings. They're in last place still.
Excuse me. If you look at your wild card standings, I believe the Reds are only 2 games out of a playoff spot right now. Yeah.
There you go.
2 games back of the Cubs, who we just won a series over for the final wild card spot. And the run differential is back in the positive after a 10-run win versus the Rockies. But I would say that counts as back after losing something like, I think it was not 17 of 25 or something like that.
It's not good.
It was real bad. And let's stay in Ohio here. Let's talk about the team that we always love to say, the Friendship and Smiles, the Cleveland Guardians. They now have 2 players in the top.
Now it's the Friendship and Dumbbells, apparently.
Friendship and Bombs, as J-Ram, Jose Ramirez, and Josh Naylor are hitting them out of the park, both in the top 10 of the MLB in home runs this season with, there we go, with Jose Ramirez at 16 and Josh Naylor also at 16. So these guys currently tied for 6th in the MLB in home runs. And for a lineup who it feels like every year we're asking, where's the power going to come from? Where's the power? We found the power. They have found it in Cleveland finally. And I think that's really what this team has needed. And that's why you see, I think, them doing so well right now. Still obviously leading the AL Central, sitting there at 39-20. And they have that buffer to the Royals. They're just able to maintain that buffer. David Fry is the GOAT if you ask any Cleveland Guardians fan right now. The dude has been mashing all year randomly out of nowhere, but great season to be a Cleveland Guardians fan. They finally have that power they've needed so badly.
Yeah, definitely. It's super impressive, especially in a season where, in my opinion, the baseballs are dead. I don't know if that's a fact or confirmed for sure, but it seems like home runs, things of that nature, extra base hits are down. And
just wait till summer and they undeaden the balls and say, ooh, summer.
Well, please do that. And please send all of those baseballs to Atlanta because that is not the case right now.
Listen, when the ball is struggling to fly out of Great American, I know the Reds have not been good hitting at home, but the teams we've played at home are not bad teams. And when the ball is struggling to fly at Great American, even when there's good contact on it, I think there is a problem.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the players, they hit it and they think it's gone, and then it's caught before the warning track, and everyone's just kind of like, what in the world? Like, all these players wouldn't consistently be this wrong about how far they've hit the baseball. So please, if you're watching this, Rob Manfred, give us back the baseballs from last year.
We saw it over the weekend. Cody Bellinger hit, I think, 6 different balls that I thought were gone off the bat at Wrigley. And I know it's Wrigley, but still, they all would just die.
Yeah. I'm not a fan of the dead baseballs at all. Flyouts are not fun to watch.
No, not at all. I hope if they are dead, they get resurrected, hopefully for the summer. But for now, we will move on to just some more speculation as we talk about these rumors that I'm curious if you would have any interest in as an Atlanta Braves fan, where a lot of people are saying Bo Bichette might end up on the Braves.
0% chance of happening. I'm sorry. If the Braves trade for anyone, it's going to be an outfielder. It's going to be a corner outfielder. Think Randy Arozarena. Think, I don't know who else off the top of my head, but Orlando Arcia is playing shortstop for the Braves.
Jock Peterson.
I would take either of those guys, please. Orlando Arcia is the shortstop for the Atlanta Braves, making less than $2 million per year, and he's top 3 in shortstop outs above average. I don't care how he hits. If you're top 3 in outs above average, making less than $2 million per season, we are not trading for a more expensive guy that can hit and not field. So no thank you to Bo Bichette from me.
Yeah, one thing that I've seen that's kind of been funny to me, even though I'm not a Braves fan by any means, I can really already tell that this is ridiculous, but it's something I've seen a lot, so I want to see if you also find this ridiculous. People are saying trade for Bo Bichette and make him the DH.
Oh.
If I'm not mistaken, y'all have a pretty good DH already.
We have the second best DH in baseball.
Yeah, in Marcell Ozuna, so that's just something that's completely ridiculous to think of, and I guess people are just bored out there trying to think of things to do.
I had not heard that, and I think I was better off before I had not heard that, so... Idiots out there, that's not going to happen. Sorry.
Yeah, and last little bit on the Braves here. I know you mentioned the dead balls, and I think you have some statistics to maybe back up your dead ball theory.
Yeah, so I saw this on Twitter the other day, and I figured I'd mention it a little bit because this just confirms my suspicions, or at least in my mind it does. Since May the 1st, the Braves have the 3rd most barrels in Major League Baseball. So just setting the stage here, the barrel is the sweet spot of the bat, and if you hit it, it's probably going to get hit hard, and it's probably going to go a long way. So
I learned that in T-ball.
So 3rd most barrels in Major League Baseball. But listen to this. The worst gap between the slugging percentage and expected slugging percentage, there's about 0.5 gap there. And then 4th worst in the Major League Baseball in terms of the gap from expected batting average on balls in play to actual batting average, and that's about 0.130 expected batting average to batting average gap. So I think if you're gonna undeaden the baseballs, send them to Atlanta. I think we deserve to use some of those. Get back to, I mean, we had one of the best lineups in terms of hitting home runs in MLB history last season, and a lot of those same guys are back this season, so you'd think you'd probably hit a lot of home runs. But no, the Braves are not even top 15 in homers this season. So
yeah, it's definitely
very weird.
It's definitely at least a little bit odd. Obviously, I'm not gonna say that the balls are dead.
Oh, I am. The balls are dead.
Until it's
dead.
Proven. But I wouldn't say if the balls are dead. I would say maybe the balls are dead for the entire MLB. But I
don't know.
We'll see. We'll have to see. And finally, before we get into the divisions, our last little bit of MLB news here is monthly awards have been named, and we already mentioned Aaron Judge was AL Player of the Month. His counterpart was Bryce Harper. For Pitcher of the Month, it was Luis Gil of the Yankees, partnering with Chris Sale of the Braves, who just keeps shoving. Dude has been insane.
Yeah, and then in his first start in June, before they even announced that he was Pitcher of the Month in May, he probably took himself out of contention for Pitcher of the Month in June. I think he gave up 7 runs or so to the A's, and I had to hear clips on social media of that godforsaken A's play-by-play announcer calling some more home runs, and I could not escape her this weekend either watching college baseball, as she was
his favorite color is green.
Yeah, green trees apparently was the home run call this weekend.
Wow.
Not a huge fan of that particular play-by-play announcer, but I am a huge fan of college baseball, so keep the college baseball coming, but give us back our regular ESPN baseball announcers, please.
Please, yes. There's also, if you want to have like a woman in the announcing booth, there's so many women that are great baseball announcers.
Doris Burke is a great basketball announcer.
Uh-huh.
Find yourself a Doris Burke.
Exactly.
For baseball. We don't need to just be the DEI office for.
There are people out there
play-by-play announcers.
There are women out there who will be really great at being a baseball player.
Exactly.
Even the one who does some work for the Astros, she is light years better than the one for the A's. So definitely there are people out there who can do that at a very high level. And then finally, our rookie and relievers of the month. It is Luis Gil again for the AL and Joey Ortiz of the Brewers for the NL for rookie. And then for reliever, it's Emmanuel Clase and Robert Suarez. I don't think either of those are surprises. Robert Suarez went on a streak where he struck out, I think, 14 straight batters or something like that?
But yeah.
He was on Mason Miller time this month. And now as we look over to the MLB divisions, starting the AL East, we've talked about the Yankees a lot. They're leading their division. I think that's it's easy to see why with how much we've talked about them already today. Orioles still only 2.5 games back, but some big blows to their rotation with John Means going to the IL and Kyle Bradish going to the IL. So we'll see if they can maybe get back going. Red Sox still right at 500. They're the Atlanta Hawks of the MLB this year.
That's so true.
Sitting right there at 500 all year. Then Rays and Blue Jays both on that 2 or 3 games behind the Red Sox right there. AL Central, friendship keeps going. Cleveland Guardians at the top, now with some power as well. The Royals 4 games back, Twins 6, Tigers 9.5, as they've really just fallen away as outside of Reese Olson and Tarek Skubal, no one else can pick up the slack, and Spencer Torkelson got sent down.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy. What was he, the 2020 first round pick, 2021?
Number 4 overall pick, yeah. He
Somewhere
was
in there.
He was picked the same year, I think, as Adley Rutschman maybe, and people were talking about those two are going to be similar level of players when they got to the big leagues, Torkelson and Rutschman, and that has just not been the case. So you hope that a guy like that isn't a quad A player like you saw from Jared Kelenic for a couple years, but we'll have to see if he can figure it out. And then the White Sox barely playing baseball down there.
30 games below 500.
Yeah.
That is insane.
It's not good. Being 24.5 games out of your division lead on the first week of June is not where you want to be at all.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to win the division.
No.
Going out on a limb.
Yeah, I would be willing to agree with that for sure. Then the AL West, the Mariners sit at 34-27, Rangers at 29-31, a whole 4.5 games back now. The Astros have kind of leveled out around that 7 to 10 games back mark.
Yeah, and they're cooked because Christian Javier needs Tommy John.
Yeah, so
they're done.
Rip Astros. I guess this is...
The Mariners are pulling away. I think the Mariners end up winning this division by 5 or more games.
The scary part about this, too, is you don't even have full Julio Rodriguez yet for the Mariners.
No.
You're still trying to figure out the lineup, and the pitching is just so good. I wonder if anyone predicted that at the beginning of the season. That it's dragging them away from the rest of this division right now. And then the Angels are back into 4th, or the Athletics, are back into 4th. The Angels are back in the basement where they belong. Poor Ron Washington.
Yes.
Feel very bad for him out there on that sinking ship. Then over to the NL East, Phillies stay about 7 games ahead of the Braves here. Braves, some say dead baseballs, are still behind the Phillies, but we'll see if they can catch up the remainder of the season. But as we've seen with these two teams, the one that finishes ahead in the regular season does not always win the postseason matchup. So
does not ever win the postseason matchup.
Yeah, I wasn't going to go there, but that's the facts. Then the Nationals sit at 27-32 in 3rd. Mets and Marlins just barely existing down
Nationals
there.
are fun to watch, though.
Nationals are fun to watch.
Confirm.
C.J. Abrams is very entertaining.
Eddie Rosario is starting to hit a little bit.
Yeah,
for them too.
he is. Somehow Nick Senzel is starting to hit a little bit, which is a Reds fan is baffling because that's a guy we took at number 1 overall and he did nothing ever. So shout out Nick Senzel, I guess. But speaking of the Reds, over in the NL Central, the Brewers are flying away with this. They have a 7-game lead on the Cubs and the Cardinals, who are tied for 2nd. Then Pirates at 8.5 back in 4th. Reds at 9 back in 5th, but I would say that the Reds are currently playing the 2nd best baseball in this division right now behind the Brewers. So we'll have to see because it's only a 2-game jump from 5th to 2nd in this division right now. And as I said earlier, only 2 games out of that wild card spot that Chicago and St. Louis are currently tied for. So anything can happen there. Then in the NL West, Dodgers, 7-game lead on the Padres. Padres and Giants are both kind of right on that wild card bubble. Diamondbacks kind of right there too, just a little bit further back. And then the Rockies are abysmal as usual. So that is pretty much it for divisions, unless there's anything you want to talk about.
Will the Dodgers win the NL West by 15 or more games?
With Luis Ariz out for the Padres, I'd say yes. Because I just don't think and Blake Snell went down for the Giants. I knew something had to be wrong with him, by the way. There's no way.
Yeah.
And now he's been on the IL twice this season. And that's what happens when you skip spring training.
Yeah, that's what happens when Scott Boras is your agent. That's more like it.
The clients are going to be fleeing from Scott Boras, I think, after how Jordan Montgomery is doing, after how Blake Snell is doing. I don't think he's long for the MLB agent world at this point for sure. But that is it for the MLB this week. And let's move on to the NBA Finals, which are set as the Mavericks. That's the team. I almost said the Orlando Magic. That is not right. We will not be
cue the Orlando Magic song.
It's going to be playing right now. It'll sound actually it won't because copyright restrictions, but it will not be playing right now. As Kyrie
Orlando Magic.
Yes.
Oh.
As Kyrie will return to Boston to take on the Celtics. Celtics versus Mavericks. This is what neither of us really expected. We thought this would be the Timberwolves, but I last week was at least able to correctly predict that they wouldn't lose 4 in a row. So,
oh wow,
yeah, I know my elite NBA prediction skills are really flying out there right now.
Oops.
Samuel lost the applause button for a second, but we're back. And then Luka Doncic currently leads the NBA in total points, total assists, and total rebounds in the playoffs so far. Not per game, just the pure counting stats. And final bit of news here is Kristaps Porzingis, the unicorn, is back for Boston. So with all that said,
Celtics in 6.
All right. He's very quick with that.
Yeah, you heard it here first. Everyone is going to be cheering for the Mavs. Everyone's going to be betting on the Mavs because the Celtics are a very boring team, but unfortunately, most of the time, boring teams are very good teams. And this is not necessarily your dominant flashy team like Golden State is, but this team has a lot of dudes, and they've swept through the playoffs pretty much other than a couple games, and now they're getting Kristaps Porzingis back, so good luck, Mavericks. You'll be lucky to push it to 6. Last time I said this, in the Timberwolves series, Kyrie and Luka proved me wrong, and shout out to them because they played very well, especially Luka down the stretch there, but I think Boston's going to be too much here.
Well, I have actually done my NBA homework this week, and every team since I think it is 2000 that has won the NBA Finals either has had the number 1 player in total points, total assists, and total rebounds, or numbers 2 or had 3 of the top 4 players, number 2, 3, and 4. And you know who doesn't have either of those things?
So we're going to penalize Boston for playing, 7 less games.
I'm not saying we're going to penalize
Mavericks.
them. I'm just saying that's what the stats say. That's what the trends say, and that is 20 plus years of statistics. So I think that Kyrie is obviously a very experienced player here. You have Luka who can just score at will, and I know he's a liability on the defensive side, but I think that the Mavs I said this last week. I think they're more battle tested in these playoffs. I think that does matter coming into a finals. You could say, oh well, maybe they're more tired. I think it's really going to make the difference here. I still don't know how much I trust if you say who do I trust more in a big game, I'm going Luka and Kyrie over Tatum and Jaylen
Yeah, definitely.
Brown.
Well, they're not playing 2-on-2 though.
I know.
And Drew Holiday for the Celtics is the best on-ball defender in the NBA. So have fun with that. Kyrie and Luka, one of you is going to be guarded by him the whole game.
I think they're going to find a way. I think they find a way. I'm going Mavericks in 7.
No chance.
Going Mavericks in 7. Well, we will have to see what happens with that, but obviously not much to talk about in the NBA outside of that, so that is it for the NBA this week, and actually some NFL news this week as Justin Jefferson signed a 4-year, $140 million contract with the Vikings, $110 million guaranteed, highest paid non-QB in NFL history, and that's a lot of money.
Yeah. I would take $110 million guaranteed right now.
I would too, but neither of us are Justin Jefferson, in case y'all couldn't tell just by watching the podcast. But
unfortunately,
I think that as crazy as it sounds, this might be worth it because I think Jefferson's the best receiver in the NFL right now. And you have a young quarterback in J.J. McCarthy.
I'm kind of surprised he signed it, though.
I'm not. You look at this defense. I know the secondary has problems, but you have a lot of pieces on offense. Jordan Addison's great. You have a top 3 tackle duo in Brian O'Neill and Christian Darrisaw. If you believe in J.J. McCarthy...
Well, this shows that he believes in J.J. McCarthy.
I think he is putting a lot of faith in J.J. here because that's really what you've staked the rest of your prime on, basically. And then this new kind of edge philosophy they have going here, bringing in Jonathan Grenard. I know you let Daniil Hunter walk, but you still have good players on the edge there in Minnesota, and I think if you can just build up this secondary a little bit, that you're going to be pretty much right where you want to be here. I think it's still a couple of years out, but I don't hate this deal for Jefferson. And I know there are a lot of people that wanted him to go to the Bengals, team up that LSU trio again. But
please no.
Yeah, I think that this is a good move for Justin Jefferson, although everyone will know I've been a J.J. McCarthy believer for a while, so I think he's going to work out. But obviously a lot of money. Contracts like this, you really hope that you don't see what you see a lot of times with this, and the guy just instantly gets injured afterwards. So hopefully Jefferson stays healthy and can continue to produce. And I would love to see this division become a four-way battle between Jordan Love and the Packers. We know what the Lions are. If the Bears can start to develop with Caleb Williams and Roma Dunze, and that's a good defense out there too. So
all four of those offenses are going to be pretty good.
Mm-hmm. This should be a very entertaining division this year for sure. But that's our one bit of NFL news for this week. And let's move on to college baseball, which we've been talking about a lot recently, and for good reason, as regionals just happened this past weekend. And let's just start off with the big storyline. The Evansville Purple Aces, who made it out as a mascot. 4 seed. Yes.
Absolutely elite mascot. They've been hitting bombs all weekend this past weekend, and they will get a date with the Tennessee Volunteers this weekend.
Give me the Purple Aces.
Dude, that I would do many things for an Evansville win this weekend.
I hope so. I don't think it's going to happen.
I didn't think there was any way that they came out. I didn't even consider them to come out of the Greenville Regional at East Carolina. You had East Carolina in there. You had Wake Forest. I forget who the 3 seed was off the top of my head. It was VCU. Shout out to Bradley LaCroix, former Clemson baseball assistant. And then Evansville. I read Evansville, didn't even know that was a place, didn't know that was a team. And they ended up
now.
They ended up beating ECU twice.
Yeah.
And
just great play from Evansville in that regional. And I think ECU is one place where you always hear about how difficult it is to play there. Make no mistake, that is one of the most difficult college baseball environments to go into. So
no doubt.
To be able to pull off 2 upsets of ECU in that regional, especially as high pressure as those last few innings were of the Monday game, a lot of credit to Evansville. And not only were they hitting bombs, that outfield is pretty great defensively as well. Made multiple great plays out there. So I think this is a team that could maybe sneak a win versus Tennessee, but I think Tennessee wins the series for sure. Then moving on down, UConn versus Florida State. And UConn coming out of the Norman Regional, Florida State coming out of their own. As much as I would love to pick UConn, I think Florida State's too good.
Yeah, Florida State has a really stacked lineup and shows that they can pitch pretty good as well this weekend in their own regional. They didn't really have the best competition per se in their regional, but did cruise to a 3-0 sweep, if you will, of their home regional. I think they probably win this one in 2 games as well, but don't underestimate the UConn Huskies as they got out of that Norman regional.
Yeah, and we know UConn is good at sports beginning with B, so we'll see if they can do that here as well. Then, if not for Evansville, this may be the surprise of the weekend is Kansas State coming out of Arkansas's regional, a team that, if I'm not mistaken, has never made it to Omaha before and will now be matching up with number 12 seed Virginia. So you think Kansas State can keep it rolling, or do you think Virginia moves back to Omaha?
Yeah, I'm actually going to take Kansas State to win this series.
I like it. I am as well.
Part of it has to do with the fact that Clemson hosted Kansas State for a midweek game, I believe in either March or April this season, and I got to talk to the SID over at Kansas State for a good while, and then I just started watching them because if you know me, you know I really liked Kansas State in 2023 in basketball. Marquise Noel had a nice run in the NCAA tournament. Purple teams are doing well so far.
Yes.
Here in this NCAA tournament.
How many purple teams do we have?
And their bats are really hot. And Virginia, I think, is one of those teams that has relied on their pitching a little bit too much throughout this season. Haven't gotten too much run support. Offense has kind of been dormant just a little bit. And I think Kansas State's bats are hot enough to win this game or to win this regional in 3 games.
Yeah, I'd completely agree with that.
Super regional, that is.
Yeah, super regional. I think Kansas State's definitely good enough. And then the North Carolina versus West Virginia matchup. Am I not mistaken saying West Virginia came out of the Arizona regional?
That is correct.
Yeah, and this was a regional that we didn't think Arizona deserved to host. We didn't think they would win it, but we sure as heck didn't think it was West Virginia. We thought this was Dallas Baptist Regional, and West Virginia just came in and said, we're pretty good at baseball too, and walked out with a regional title, and now they get to play North Carolina.
Yeah, Dallas Baptist, Grand Canyon. You had San Diego in that one as well.
Oh, that was the UCSB. That was not the Arizona Regional. You're right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway,
because Arizona was the
Arizona. I'm getting the West ones confused right now, but regardless,
neither Arizona nor UCSB advanced from their regionals. Is all y'all need to know.
Yeah, and West Virginia,
and they were 13 and 14.
West Virginia is swinging the bats pretty good as well, scoring 10 runs against Grand Canyon. Let's see as I pull up this. Please work. Okay, there we go.
Cue Jeopardy music.
Beat Grand Canyon 5-2 and 10-6. Also beat Dallas Baptist 4-1 as the 3 seed in the Tucson regional.
Yeah, okay.
You're correct.
I knew what I was talking about.
There you go. And so yeah, they're swinging a hot bat as well. But I think North Carolina is going to cruise here, and I'll tell you why. I think it's going to be because they just are coming off of an emotional win in Game 7 against LSU. Many thought was kind of a sleeper, in quotation marks, sleeper team to go to Omaha, NILSU, as many people like to call them, who, according to Gary Gilmore, newly retired Coastal Carolina baseball coach, they're spending somewhere in the ballpark of $2 million for their baseball team this season.
Yikes.
And North Carolina was down 3-2 in that game going into the top of the 9th. Yes, they were the visiting team in their home regional, which is another thing that I think is very stupid. In the top of the 9th, they scored 2 runs, I believe, to go ahead 4-3, held on to win 4-3 and advance here. And I'm going to be an ACC advocate, and I think North Carolina is going to Omaha.
Yeah, as much as West Virginia surprised me so far this postseason, I think that neither Arizona nor Dallas Baptist or North Carolina. I think North Carolina definitely wins this one. Then on to the group of regionals that goes Saturday to Monday. Let's talk about the state of Oregon. Is Oregon State first will take on number 2 Kentucky, and I might like the Beavers here.
Yeah, I'm kind of torn on this one because I wasn't really too high on Kentucky at all throughout the season. I thought they were beneficiaries of a weak schedule. And in particular, this weekend, their bats really came alive and their pitching was pretty dominant, looking like one of the more complete teams just from my perspective that is left in the field. So I'm going to take Kentucky here, but I do think the Beavers from Corvallis can give them a nice run for their money.
Yeah, we'll definitely have to see what happens. I think Oregon State this is a program that's pretty perennially good. I think they definitely could have a chance to go to Omaha. And then the other team from the state of Oregon is the Oregon Ducks, a team that I was texting you about all weekend as I was so mad. I almost picked this team to win their regional on pure vibes and nothing else. This is the team that came out of the UCSB regional.
Yes.
And they managed to do it anyway, and Texas A&M is who they will be taking on. Texas A&M had the massive extra inning emotional game versus Texas in that regional, ended up winning the entire thing. And
speaking of tough places to play in college baseball,
holy cow.
Oh my goodness.
I do not envy Oregon at all. I think Texas A&M wins this.
Oh yeah, I think this will be complete and utter domination, but I also said that Oregon was terrible going into last weekend, so we'll see how that goes. And then finally, before we get to our favorite super regional,
yes,
we have number 10 NC State at number 7 Georgia. This is one of my favorite. I don't know how I want to really describe it. The super regionals I'm looking most forward to outside of Florida Clemson. I think this one falls into that category just because you've got a Georgia team who features the best player in the country in Charlie Condon. But then this NC State team really got hot starting in the second half of March, I believe, maybe early April. And that's a quality you want to have going into the second weekend of the NCAA tournament. And I think this series is a pretty much guarantee to go 3 games. And it's a coin flip for me. I trust NC State's pitching just a little bit more. So I'm going to go NC State here.
Yeah, I trust NC State's pitching a lot more, actually, than I trust Georgia's. I like NC State to win this super regional. I do think it goes 3 as well, just because of how good Georgia's lineup is. But NC State is who I'm going to be taking there. And then finally, the most important regional, according to us, is the Florida Gators who made it out of the Stillwater Regional after beating Nebraska twice and Oklahoma State twice, excuse me.
That's what I say. It's impressive. You play 5 games in a regional.
Beat them 3 times. I'm erasing the complete game from Holiday out of my mind because it was terrible. But we'll take on the Clemson Tigers and Doug Kingsmore Stadium here in beautiful Clemson, South Carolina. And I have a feeling that we're going to disagree here because I'm going to back my guys. I'm going to back the team that I grew up loving. Florida baseball was so much of my childhood watching this team. And Jack Caglione and the rest of this Florida team, they just feel like they've really hit their stride. Psycho Brandon Neely is back in the second matchup versus Oklahoma State. Just had an absolutely insane performance, tied his career high in strikeouts with 11, and really just finished off that game. Liam Peterson will be back. Jack Caglione will be back. They will both be on the mound for one of these games for sure. And then
Liam Peterson announced as a Saturday starter, and Jack Caglione announced as a Sunday starter for Florida.
So when you have both of that, and then even if one of those guys falters, I'm pretty confident in postseason Brandon Neely to show up. And I think that's just enough pitching to get this done with how the Florida bats can be. If the Florida bats can manage to show up, I know Aiden Canuck's a tough matchup, but I think that these bats are good enough to get it done.
And I'll tell you that better bats will be in the opposing dugout, and that is with the Clemson Tigers. You have a lineup 1 through 9, really 1 through 7, that is absolutely mashing at the right time. Starting off with Alden Mathis, boasting a near 500 on base percentage. Not necessarily a guy that's going to hit a ton of bombs, not necessarily a guy that's going to get a ton of extra base hits, but a guy that is going to get on base. And if you've watched the movie Moneyball, we like people that get on base. And then after him, you have Jacob Hinderleiter, who went 5 for 5 in Clemson's first game against Coastal Carolina on, I believe that was Saturday afternoon. Yes, it was. I'm getting my days mixed up, but yes, that was Saturday afternoon. And then Hinderleiter's also stepped up as a middle infielder over there at shortstop. He started the season playing first base, but when Tony Chufo went down, he's kind of had to settle in and come into his own as a defensive shortstop, but was perfect as a shortstop in the field this week. Made a lot of diving plays, leaping plays on lineouts, things of that nature. And then once those two guys set the table, then you have batting third Blake Wright, who is had flashes of being a top 10 hitter in the country all season. And then you have Cam Canarella in the 4 spot, who has been a top 10 hitter in the country all season. And these guys really exploded in the last game of this regional, but doing enough to get it done in the first few games. And it just seemed like they couldn't really get that big hit. They had over 20 guys left on base throughout the regional.
You want to talk about guys left on base? Florida had a ton of those as well.
In each game, 20 left on base in each game. And finally in the 8th inning of that game 6, breaking through. And I think that's going to be enough to kind of carry that momentum into this, what's going to be one of the most electric atmospheres you'll see this weekend. I know it's not going to be one of the biggest, but it is going to be one of the most electric. And Jimmy Obertop is back to hitting his stride at the catcher position after going through a little bit of a slump throughout the ACC tournament, the first game of the regional. Jack Crichton down towards the bottom of the lineup in the 7 spot is hitting very well. I don't know the exact numbers off the top of my head. Tristan Becerra is absolutely mashing the ball right now. Hit a 116-mile-per-hour double the other day in the 8th inning, in that 8th inning that I was talking about, in which the Clemson Tigers scored 7 runs. And then Jaron Purify in the 9 spot has been able to ignite a spark at times with his suicide squeeze plays or just getting on base via walk. I feel really good about where the Clemson lineup is right now. If you would have asked me a week ago how I would feel about the bullpen, I would have said I did not feel good at all about the bullpen. But ever since then, they've kind of turned it around a little bit. Reed Garris coming in and shoving with that 95-mile-an-hour fastball over the top. He gave us a nice inning and 2/3 before he gave up a couple bombs, left him in a little bit too long there, in my opinion. Lucas Malstead will come at you from the sidearm angle. He's always a nice little way to mix it up in terms of arm slot. Jacob McGovern coming in for a really big out against Coastal in the 8th inning with 2 on and 2 outs, striking them out on that big 12-6 curveball, and then walking off the mound like he was taking his groceries out of Ingles, as William Quackenbush framed it on 105.5 The Roar. So obviously very biased. I work with the Clemson baseball team and have been a Clemson baseball fan my entire life, but I'm going to go with the Clemson Tigers here.
Yeah, I definitely understand it. Clemson's been a far better team all year. I won't deny that at all. I just think this Florida team is getting hot at the right time. And speaking of getting hot at the right time, Ashton Wilson is raking right now. He won Player of the Regional and the Stillwater Regional. Then Cade Kirkland has been great as well. Colby Shelton had a massive 3-run bomb. So I think all these guys getting hot at the right time. These are going to be 2 big lineups going up against each other. And it's really, I think, going to come down to not even just the starting pitching, but which bullpen.
Yeah, so I don't know too much about Liam Peterson, so give me a little bit of rundown on him.
Liam Peterson's solid. He's been probably our second most effective starter all year. Caglion's really been the main guy, but we don't.
Hasn't Cags been getting shelled a little bit recently?
So he was pretty good coming into the Stillwater Regional, but then gave up 2 different back-to-back home run instances. One was almost back-to-back-to-back, but I think he'll settle down. I think he'll be much more ready to go.
Good luck settling down in that atmosphere.
I know. I think he'll be ready to go. We've seen him perform in big moments before, so I don't think the environment is really that much of a concern. I would say I'm a bit more worried about Peterson going into this regional, and you really don't want to drop the first game. If it were me, I would have maybe thrown Cags first and Peterson second, but that's not how Sully likes to work. He's done Cags second through a weekend series all year, so I'm not surprised to see this at all, but the good news is if one of those guys does blow up, I have full confidence in Brandon Neely to come in and just be shut down at this point in the year with how he's been in the postseason, his career in the postseason. He just is that stopper and closer kind of combined all into one. So that's who I really have faith in for it. And as we go down to this last little bit here, obviously I'm picking Florida. Who do we think our Omaha 8 are going to be out of this?
So for me, it's going to be just going top to bottom from the regionals that we have listed here. I'm going to go Tennessee, Florida State, Kansas State, North Carolina, Kentucky, NC State, Clemson, and Texas A&M.
We are fairly similar. I'm going to go Tennessee, Florida State, Kansas State, North Carolina, Oregon State, NC State, Florida, and Texas A&M. So I think it's just the Oregon State, Kentucky, and obviously the Florida Clemson Supers where we are differing opinion on.
It's hilarious to think 2 weeks ago how you felt about this Florida team versus how you feel now.
Well, I mean, the talent has been there all year. The execution has not been there at all most of the year. And now that this team is starting to execute, I can finally put faith in the talent. So that's what I'm going to do, and we'll see what happens. But I think that is it for college baseball this week. Fine a little bit for the podcast as we round it out here. The Stanley Cup final has been set as the Florida Panthers will take on the Edmonton Oilers. I did so great at picking the 2 conference finals. I got them both wrong. Well, it turns out that Stuart Skinner learned how to play goalie, and that was just enough for Edmonton as Connor McDavid just willed them to a cup final. First time in a cup final for Connor McDavid. Absolutely great to see. I'm just super stoked for him. And then the Panthers. Sergei Bobrovsky's still been great in net, and this team looks great top to bottom right now. And last time we had a matchup of a top to bottom great team in the Dallas Stars, who I picked to win the cup, versus the Oilers, I said, they can't just ride McDavid and Draisaitl, and they said, watch. So I'm going to pick the Edmonton Oilers to win the Stanley Cup this year. I think the series, honestly, either goes 4 or it goes 7. I don't think this is a 5 or 6 game type of thing. I think it does go 7, though, and I'm going to take the Edmonton Oilers in 7.
Well, you heard it here first. I'm not really into playoff hockey at the moment. I've been watching other things, including college baseball. But I'm going to go with the Panthers. Just a gut feel. I like their logo. It's pretty
nice. Cool. Listen, I can't hate on the logo picks. That's how I became a San Jose Sharks fan in 2014. So that was a mistake. But that is it for the pod this week. Thank you guys for tuning in, and we will see you next week with one of us very happy and one of us very sad.
And we'll know the Omaha 8.
Yes, we will. So we'll see you guys next week.